even if you win 18 months from now, I've no, I've never had anybody walk out of a courthouse, even with a win going, nobody is ever happy at the end of litigation, even if they win, even if they get all their attorney's fees are paid, etc. Because even if you get everything that you want, you've still lost those days, weeks, months,
Time.
etc. Time.
Time.
You've lost energy. You've lost a part of your soul.
Welcome, everyone. This is Andrea Gordon. I'm your host of Realizations, the podcast where we talk about everything real estate. And today I'm very, very happy to have Jerry Larkowski with me, who is both an attorney and a realtor, who is one of the broker owners of in Little Rock, Arkansas, of ESQ Realty Group, which is run by 4 attorneys, hence the name ESQ, like Esquire in England, I would guess. So welcome today, Jerry. You know, I started this podcast when the NAR and DOJ lawsuits were occurring and when the commission lawsuits were occurring, because I got very, very, very angry at what I perceived to be a slight and a disrespect, a profound disrespect on part of both the DOJ and the people that were bringing these lawsuits against their realtors way back when. I could be angry about that for years and years and years, or I could figure out a way that I could channel that anger into something positive. Because what I figured out is that those lawsuits occurred because no one understands what real estate is, how it is practiced by realtors, what we do on a daily basis, why what we do has value, how important to the economy our services actually are, how transfer taxes basically run cities at this point, at least in California where I am. And so that's why I started this podcast. So I brought on a variety of people. I've had Robert Reskin, who's the head of Compass, on. I've had city managers, planners, mayors, plumbers, designers, other realtors, other attorneys, all to talk about the complicated, very, very interesting world that is real estate. And my hope out of this podcast is that some people will be inspired to go into real estate as a profession, and that others will learn that real estate is not as simple as pushing a button or being Vanna White and turning a letter over. It's a very interesting, all-encompassing world out there. So welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here. And to just be abundantly accurate, I'm not an owner of this real estate firm. I just help run it. I'm the managing broker for the Little Rock office. So
Excellent. Excellent.
I have no desire to own any more entities. Did that once with a law firm. Been there, done that. To have the pictures. I just want to work, make money. I just want to work, make money, and help other people work and make money.
Well, that is very, very lovely. Okay. But that's interesting, but you're an attorney. So do they always hire attorneys to be the brokers of their different outfits?
No, not at all. That was the brand originally. It was originally created by 3 attorneys, and one of them moved out of state, and so he sold his interest back, and then there were just the original 2 of the original 3. One office, the main office, is in Hot Springs. I'm in the smaller Little Rock office. We have well into the 20s when it comes to the number of licensees with this firm, but only 4 of us are attorneys.
Okay. And what is an average price point for a single family home in Little Rock?
I think the median average is right around $325. The amount where, if you had to do a median as to what has most of the action, I would say just north of $200,000. What brings up to 300,000 is the houses that are in the 900s, 900,000s, millions, etc. But most of the juice is in the low 200s to high 200s.
That's similar here, but our price points are very, very different in the Bay Area. A median house price right now in Berkeley, California is 1.2 million, and in Oakland around $1 million. And so, yeah, but then again, it costs 8 times as much to live here. So there you go.
And a lot of you guys probably make 6, 7, 8 times more money than what we do too.
Yeah,
So
it's true. It's the discrepancy between income and housing costs and what have you all across the country is mind boggling. I speak to realtors literally all over the country and even into Canada. I've had a couple of people on from Italy. And it's kind of amazing to me. I think part of the problem in real estate is this lack of unification as far as pricing is concerned and as far as needs are concerned. Even in my area, we have homes that are on sewer, some that are on septic. There's all kinds of different, some people have wells, some people don't. There's all kinds of different sorts of real estate that's practiced literally everywhere, but it would be so great if there was some sort of unification in the way real estate is practiced. For example, in California, realtors handle the entire contract process. Whereas, like in New York State, at the end of a transaction, you go to an attorney who finishes everything for you. What is it like in Little Rock? How is it done?
Somewhere in between, probably more heavily like California. Everything's closed through a title company here. They do the title work, issue a commitment, originate policy that will be conveyed at closing to the buyer from the seller, ensuring the marketability of the title. Also, a policy that would go to the lender that the buyer may use so that they have their own protection as well. And then they underwrite the insurance and process it. And after closing, the buyers and the lenders have at least a title policy. All of those title companies are run under the supervision of an attorney,
Mhm.
or at least one attorney. So while we are different from the Northeast that is used to having things closed with an attorney at an attorney's office, we tend to be at title companies in their offices with a bunch of non-lawyers, but who are under the supervision of lawyers. But we as realtors do most of the work to get it to the title company. I like to liken our roles as like a conductor of an orchestra, because you have, not only the buyer's agent that you are trying to drive this person through to closing, but you've got a listing agent, you've got title companies, you've got survey companies that are anxious to do their work, termite companies, you've got 5, 6, 7, 8, and lenders and all that. And as each one does their role, sometimes a cost is incurred. And so I tell everybody we're like a conductor, because we're like, no, we're not ready for that. I need more from the horn section for you to get this. And then we can bring you in. And I laughed the first time I thought of it, just like you did, but it's very true. It's
Oh no, absolutely,
painfully true.
absolutely, absolutely. And when so here we write all the in Northern California, we write the contracts, we write all the addendums associated with the contracts. We get everything to the point where it does get closed at a title company, but all of the forms and all of those things are handled by us and our transaction coordinator. If you go down to about the middle of the state of California and then further south, the title companies handle all of the disclosure paperwork and everything, as opposed to here where we have to keep the entire file. My sister was selling 4 properties in Southern California, and I helped her to find an agent and do all that kind of stuff. And I was like shocked because the realtors there don't do as much work as we do. Let's just put it that way. um, and
I understand.
yeah, so it was interesting. Now, I'm very curious about the fact that you were also a real estate attorney. Oops. Let's
Yes.
see here. I somehow made all kinds of little smiley faces go all over my page. I'm also interested in what you do as a real estate attorney. What are the primary sorts of cases that you see in real estate in Little Rock, Arkansas? What goes on there?
Sure. So let me explain a little bit very quickly how I got here. I was a trial attorney for 25 years. That kind of work can be stressful. It wears on you. And at the 25-year point, I was approaching burnout, and I had to get out. I went to work for a company for 5 years. It was a great gig, but COVID came along and I had to go.
Yeah.
Luckily, I'd got a real estate license the year before. And so as I was laid off, sitting around trying to think if I was going to, the courthouses were closed because of COVID. I was sick of the courthouse anyway. So I started selling real estate and just really developed a niche, had a volume, because 21 and 22 were so just voluminous with
Yeah.
transactions. and
Yeah.
got to where I was just, I could write everything just almost in my sleep. And then I started to grow, build a team. I've had several team members, one that's been with me for almost 4 years now. I've had two others come and go. And I have another one that's been with us. It'll be a year in May. And I enjoy teaching them and mentoring them, counseling them how transactions should go. Even the ones that have been at it for a long time, the one that's been with me for over 3 years, you can do all the transactions in the world, but when you have to be as old as Methuselah as I am, you go
Oh,
to
yeah.
wisdom. Sometimes it really helps to jump in and say, okay, I know we've done this before, but hey, slow down here, try this, etc. And it works. And I enjoy that kind of work.
Mm.
The years of trial practice taught me a lot. The thing about the trial practice is I saw people not only at their worst when deals broke down, and here as realtors, we make deals happen, but how they go down and what happens in a court of law and the things that you say and the things that you write today in 18 months could be read back to you, could be handed as an exhibit to you. And all of a sudden, the thing that was looking great in March of 2026 in September of 2027 looks like you're going to have to write a check, or you're going to,
Mhm.
have some kind of a loss to deal with. And and I can see those things because I have been trying those cases and done that. The guy that I worked for, when I said I worked for a company for 5 years, one of our last conversations, we were talking about something and I asked him about 7 or 8 questions and he said, "You're already trying this case in your mind, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes, I am."
Yeah, no,
So
I would guess that you know how to protect yourself very well from any sorts of problems that could come up in the future because of your background as a trial attorney in real estate.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like when we write contracts, there are so many realtors here in Central Arkansas that have a bad habit of writing and seller to provide a refrigerator at closing. And I tell my people, to is not a verb. Go look it up in the dictionary. Seller to is not a verb. You got to have a verb in that sentence, or it's not enforceable.
Mhm.
And so I always say shall, you shall, not will. Will is predictive, shall is directive. So seller
Yeah.
shall provide a refrigerator at closing. And it's just things like that. And they're like, really? And I'm like, try being a 29-year-old attorney, standing in front of a judge who is my age right now. As I'm sitting here, my case is going downhill, and he looks over his glasses and says, "Mr. Larkowski, you're an attorney. What does that say?" And the whole courtroom got real quiet. Then I said, "It says I lose." Everybody had to laugh at that, and I did lose the case, but you learn so much from making mistakes, from losing, from setbacks, from monetary losses, that it makes you grow, it makes you better, it makes you stronger,
Mm.
and you never forget it. You'll forget
Yeah.
wins. I forget so many great sales that we've had here, but the ones that got away, that still kind of chaps me. So
Yeah.
no, we learn from those, and that's what's important. The real estate law I do now is just very niche, quiet title actions. I don't know if you've ever heard
Oh,
of that or what have you, but if there's any kind of title deficiencies when it comes up to closing, or we can see early on that before we do
mm.
get to the point where we're going to have a closing, there needs to be some corrective work done. Those are the kind of
So in
cases.
that situation, is your client the owner of the property, or is it a title company?
So the cases that I have taken have never been the ones that I have actually been working on myself,
Mhm.
with one exception, and that was one where I was my own client, and
Yeah.
Abe Lincoln thought I was a fool, and I was, uh,
Mhm.
but because it took me a year and a half to do something that should have taken 3 months, but I was a horrible client. I didn't return my clients' phone calls, and it, it just
Yeah,
took
yeah.
forever. But I'm
That's
getting
why, by the
referrals from
way
title companies.
I think it's always good for realtors to hear that because we shouldn't represent ourselves on our own transactions. We are our own
No,
worst clients on a regular
no,
basis. And also, you're
absolutely.
held to such a high standard if something does go wrong that you're way better off if you have somebody representing you in that situation. I also don't do any double ending of transactions. Because I do believe that there's such an incredible conflict of interest. Do they allow double ending in Arkansas?
They do. We do it often. And, the first couple times I did that, I kind of felt like, with my attorney instincts, okay, there's a conflict of interest here, but I resolved that in this manner. If I'm suing you because you hit me at a red light, I want money from you. You don't want to have to pay me money. If I bring an action against you because you committed a misdemeanor, I want you to go to the penitentiary. You don't want to. Those are conflicts of interest. But where I've resolved it in a real estate transaction is the seller wants out and the buyer wants in, and as long as you don't tell the other sides what their secrets are, what their confidentiality things are, you should be able to prevail. And but the biggest thing is you have to maintain trust. And I think when they know that you have protected them against a question from the other side, they feel a lot better when you bring something from their side saying, well, I can't tell you that, but I'm telling you that you should do this because not because I know that they'll do this or whatever, but just at this point, even if I were not representing them, I would tell you this is the checker move that you need to make at this point. And so far, I've been fine, but I totally get. I've known one or two other realtors here in the last 6, 7 years that always refer, if they get somebody contacting them about one of their listings, they refer them to a
Yeah.
buyer's agent. And,
And
and I
I
totally
don't
get
know
that.
I don't know if there's paperwork in Arkansas, but we actually just had a raft of new forms come out regarding referrals so that they're completely transparent. Did you guys get that paperwork as well? As that NAR or is that state organizations?
We might have gotten it, but we've got a form that basically advises them on dual agency, and so
Mhm.
that's typically where we go through that. And in my view, I'm high on ethics. I may over explain. I want to be absolutely sure people, as they're signing this, etc., get what we're getting at. And so I don't know that we're using that form yet, but I'm probably providing more than what the form requires.
Yeah.
Sometimes it really helps to talk it through, look people in the eye, that type of thing, rather than here, sign this form. No, do you want the house or whatever, that type of thing. So no, I think you have to be careful.
Mhm.
When you represent both sides, you might need to take a breath before you answer a question so that you don't divulge what the other side
Mhm.
is. But a lot of it is just integrity, ethics, and knowing that you're providing a service and you're not just trying to earn a commission.
Right, absolutely. So, in answer to my first question to you around your attorney work, what are the types of lawsuits that you see? Are they mostly disclosure sorts of lawsuits or are they mostly, so as a broker in your office, hopefully you haven't seen too many lawsuits, but what is typical? In our area, failure to disclose something is like the big one, and then square footage lawsuits are huge. What about in your area?
Disclosure can be a nice chunk of them. A lot of them are just realtors not doing their job, receiving information that is critical to a transaction and not turning it over to client. Or if they do, brushing it off, making no big deal about it. Here, just sign
Oh,
and not. Do you have any questions? Do you understand what this means? Do you have any other questions? Do you know that you can get advice from an attorney or somebody else out there before you do this? Just being
right.
um, absolutely careful about it. Buying property is one of the biggest transactions in life, and unless you're somebody that's involved in real estate or corporate America or something on a really large basis, the average, you know, John and Mary, this is one of the biggest transactions they'll ever have in their life. It's not like you're going to buy a toaster at Walmart. You're buying a
Right.
house that has multiple components, multiple moving parts, if you'll forgive the overused expression. And it needs to be more than just looking at this toaster compared to the toaster, one foot over. And most people have bought a car and you kind of go through that process slower than the proverbial toaster also. But even that, this takes, it takes you hours to buy a car. This takes you weeks to buy a house. And if you're
Right.
borrowing money, it's going to take weeks and weeks.
Right.
I think that's something we've got to remind ourselves as realtors is while you may do this all the time and it's nothing to you, it's something huge to them. And we have to remind
Absolutely.
ourselves daily that we owe them a duty, uh,
Mhm.
that you've got to explain things. You got to make sure they understand things because if you're not, you're not. doing your job. So to recap, I think it's important for realtors, those that are listening out there, that if you have dozens of transactions every year, every time you pick up one of these and go with it, roll with it, the next step after that, the next step after that may be routine to you. And it looks like five others that you've done in this year and all that, but it's not going to be routine to your buyers and your sellers. This is something they may do only once in a lifetime, a couple times in a lifetime, every 5, 6, 7, 8 years. But even the 5, 6, 7 years, it's a major transaction in life and it's not routine. And you need to make sure that they understand everything, make sure they understand what's different now than the last time they did this.
That's true too.
Um, Make them ask questions and get to a point of comfort where you feel like, yes, they're making an informed decision. They're not just going along with your decision, and make sure that they are comfortable with this major transaction in life. If you're not doing that, I don't think you're doing your job. And if you're not doing your job, you don't belong in this business. This is a profession at which you earn a fee. It is not a gig or a job at which you can make a buck. It's a
Yes,
profession and we ought to act professionally.
absolutely. And the other thing is that we are in a very litigious society. So when people do have enough money that they do sue, what have you, for whatever, you should be writing down every conversation. You should be writing down, you should be documenting everything that happens with you and your clients, just so you have a good record. And remember, just like you said earlier in the podcast, that anything you write in an email or a text could show up in a deposition or a lawsuit. And so just be really mindful of that. Don't say horrible things about your clients. don't don't be someone who does not protect themselves, 'cause I think that's part of it too. It's not just that we're not doing our jobs, it's also that the world has become a little bit of a more litigious, difficult place in the most recent past, I think. I don't know if you've
Absolutely.
experienced that.
Absolutely. I was on a phone conversation with my insurance agent a couple months ago, and we were talking about this very thing about something else. And I said a phrase that I kind of coined myself: type not that which you do not want read back to you. And he said, "Ooh, that's good. My 20-year-old son is here. Would you say that again? I'm going to put you on
Yeah,
speakerphone." And apparently they'd had some discussions about that. So yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. I think that's very important. And one of the benefits that I have as an attorney who has done litigation, and you're right, we are a litigious society. And let me kind of foreshadow for people, even if you win 18 months from now, I know I've never had anybody walk out of a courthouse, even with a win, going, "Gosh, I'm so glad that I was in that car accident. Gosh, I'm so glad that that
yeah,
house sale fell through." Nobody's ever happy at the end of litigation, even if they win, even if they get all their attorney's fees are paid, etc. Because even if you get everything that you want, you've still lost those days, weeks, months,
time,
etc. Time.
time.
You've lost energy. You've lost a part of your soul.
Yeah,
And so no, you don't want to get into litigation. And one of the benefits I have is from having done so much of it and then having done so much real estate transactions now is, yeah, when I know I need to make a note of what someone said or did or whatever, or documented, I do. But it's really, like they used to say, defensive medicine, practicing good defensive medicine, so to speak, by making sure with every conversation that they're at that point so you don't have to write it down, or
right.
you don't have to write it down as much. Just having enough focus in your mind, knowing you're at this point where, are they going to stay in the contract and we're going to go on to underwriting and get an appraisal? Are you good with where we are now? And uh,
Mhm.
those are things, those are little conversations you need to have in your head before you have it with your client.
Absolutely. Well, you are a delight. I can tell that you were probably very, very popular as an attorney. It's almost like theater in a funny way when people are actually going on trial and in front of people. I'm sure you're quite the performer when you're doing that sort of stuff. And I appreciate that because in my outside of the real estate, I direct plays. And so I can see that how charming and delightful that you would be. Also very, very smart and very wise.
Thank you for saying that.
Markowski,
How was
this
our,
has
how was
been
our,
a pleasure.
I was a judge last week in mock trial for high school students, and we were sitting in the jury box. There were three of us that were scores, and then one that was like a judge. And afterwards, they were asking for critiques and all that. And I was telling the ones that were good, I said, I could tell by the way you were asking questions, by the way you were making statements, you were having fun, you were smiling, you were getting it done right. And I said, let me tell you something. The people that sit here in these jury boxes, they don't want to be here. If you make the experience better, whether it's theatrical, whether it's, just pleasant or whatever, you're going to make their day a little bit better. So keep up with that, do that. And not everybody can be theatrical. Don't
No.
ever try to be something that you're not. But if you are and you feel it and you're good at it, do it, because people always say, Jerry, you make everybody laugh so much and all that. I was like, think about it. Every person on this planet, no matter how good or bad they are, loves to laugh. Take Adolf Hitler, take Vladimir Putin if you don't like them. I don't care who's the sorriest person you know, they love to laugh and they like to feel better. They like to feel good. And so find your way to be able to get through to people to make them feel a little bit better after they've had a conversation with you. You'll do really well in this business. You'll do really well in work.
I think that's true. It's a life lesson everyone should learn. Thank you very much. And if people want to get a hold of you, if someone has a referral for Little Rock, Arkansas, or needs an attorney in Little Rock, Arkansas, or just is curious about real estate in Little Rock, Arkansas, how do they get a hold of you?
For real estate sales,
Yes.
Jerry, Jerry, at ESQ Broker.
You broke up again. I can't believe it. Right as you were saying.
Jerry Larkowski. Oh, wow. I'll do it again. Okay.
Well, you have to do that whole thing again because
for real estate sales. Yeah.
Yes.
I froze again. Wow. Okay. maybe the internet needs a minute to take a breath because I said so much here in the last 20 minutes. Well, thank you for having me. Yes, would love to hear from people if I can be of any help to them for real estate sales. Jerry, Jerry, at ESQbrokers.com. Jerry at ESQbrokers.com. For real estate law, legal, real estate advice, etc. Jerry Larkowski at gmail.com.
Beautiful. Thank you so much and have a wonderful rest of your day. I really appreciate this. Was an interesting conversation to hear it from your perspective. I love that.
Thank
All right.
You're welcome.
Take good care. Bye.
If you loved hearing from these incredible voices shaping real estate, you'll want to catch what's next. Click the video on screen to keep discovering more inspiring stories.